always glad of an opportunity to visit Wales.
The Queen's finest moment in Wales was also her saddest, the visit to Aberfan.
To me, that day, she didn't come as the Queen, our monarch. Yeah. She came as a mother.
I, Charles, Prince of Wales, do become your liege man of life and limb.
She was the boss. She was the boss lady. There was nothing that went past her.
I felt like the Queen sensed my panic.
She didn't like my accent and she didn't understand what I'd said. So that was the first lesson. Maybe tone down the North Walian accent a little bit.
It is now up to you to make this National Assembly a true symbol of Wales.
She did her duty well. Can't say it better than that.
We believed in what she said. It made a difference for us because it gave us hope.
I just feel truly blessed to have actually met her, and I'm very, very sad that I'll never get that opportunity again.
She will be a hard act to follow.
Wales is in mourning. For a Queen who, during her long life, touched the lives of people here.
To be honest with you, I cried.
She was just a beautiful person. She stole all our hearts, really.
And reached out beyond her royal duties to form close relationships with Welsh communities.
She was so sympathetic and empathetic to people of all races and all colours.
Those moments have been captured over the decades in photographs and on film, and the memories of the Queen in Wales will be relived in this programme. The warmth of the welcome extended to Elizabeth II was apparent even from when the princess was a small child.
This is the little cottage with the straw roof which Princess Elizabeth received as a gift from the people of Wales on her 6th birthday on April the 21st. There's the Duchess of York just opening the front door when she went with the Duke of York to Cardiff to accept this wonderful present for their little daughter. And there they are emerging after inspecting the wonders of this perfect home in miniature.
The little Cardiff girl, dressed in traditional Welsh costume, who handed over the keys, was Jean Sharman.
There they are, very happy to be receiving it. Princess Elizabeth must have been thrilled to have it. I think it was charming, and inside you wanted to touch everything because it was so small in miniature. I can remember touching the stove and touching this and thinking, oh, look at that. I thought, oh, and she's got a washing machine and that lovely china. Oh, isn't she lucky? Then I probably went home discontented because I didn't have it. I'm sure I felt that.
Jean's father was one of the men who'd helped to make the miniature house, which still stands today in the grounds of Windsor Castle.
In a beautiful Welsh glade at Mountain Ash, the Gorsedd Circle had been erected for the National Eisteddfod of Wales. To the ancient ceremonial and the age-long traditions of the bards is added a new note. Princess Elizabeth becomes an honorary bard.
Elizabeth of Windsor.
She was 20 years old and not yet Queen, but Princess Elizabeth was already immersing herself in Welsh life. And she'd already made an impact on some.
And my first impression of her was that she looked like a movie star. I mean, she was very, very beautiful, elegant. The other impression I had of her was the high-pitched voice. I'd never heard people speaking like that, because in South Wales you didn't hear people speaking in that way at all. And it was very sort of, I suppose you'd call it cut glass.
I am always glad of an opportunity to visit Wales. And it is with special pleasure that I come to Cardiff today to receive the freedom of your famous city.
O God, the crown of the faithful, and so sanctify thy servant Elizabeth, upon whose head this day thou dost place it for a sign of royal majesty.
In 1953, Elizabeth was crowned Queen and returned to Wales.
Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh visit Pontypridd during their coronation tour of South Wales.
People felt it was a turning point. They were turning their backs on the period of the war and rationing, and here was a new queen, a new figure, young, and she was just as popular in Wales as in anywhere else in the United Kingdom.
To Carnarvon Castle, the great stone guardian of the Menai Straits, come Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh.
She really tried so hard to incorporate, if you like, brackets, the Welsh people, the people of Wales, and she really minded about that.
As a lady-in-waiting in the royal household and Lord Lieutenant of Powys, Dame Sian Legg-Burke organised numerous visits for the Queen.
Wherever she went, whether it was in the valleys, whether it was up the mountains, it didn't matter where, but she always said how touched she was by the welcome she got from the people of Wales.
My Lord Mayor, I wish the city and the Royal National Eisteddfod all good fortune and prosperity in the years that lie ahead.
And Wales's affection for the Queen was evident throughout her reign. In 1960, she brought her young family to Cardiff.
The Queen brought 2 young children. She had Prince Charles, who was 12, and Princess Anne, who was 10 years old. She brought them in the royal train down to the National Eisteddfod. But the main point of the visit, as far as I was concerned, was the fact that it gave all of us the opportunity to see the Royal Yacht Britannia with Prince Philip on board. And of course the Queen came down. The crowds gathered down on Cardiff Bay. Tiger Bay, it was known as in those days, Cardiff Docks. The police estimated they were going to be around about 10 or 12,000. They were totally wrong. At the end, it was something like 33 or 35,000 people, all waving and shouting, "We want the Queen, we want the Queen." It was wonderful. And the Queen and Charles and Anne went up the royal gangway, and they stood there waving as the royal yacht pulled out.
Any big royal celebration was a cause for street parties across Wales, especially for the ladies of Llanmaes Street in Grangetown.
You're on here, I think, Jean.
There's Sharon.
Anything to celebrate, Llanmaes Street celebrated it. So any excuse for a party, we'll have a party. There's Tamara. There's all the children, look, dancing. Yeah, look. And there's George dancing with them, look. Yes.
We were all friends anyway. Everybody knew everybody, everyone's door was open. But then it was a little get-together of the whole of our little community. So we were all royalists, and here was an excuse to celebrate the royalty and all come together and have a party and ease up.
So, what was it about this young queen which endeared her to our nation? She was tested early in her reign by Wales's worst ever disaster. This was Aberfan, in the hours after the colliery waste tip had collapsed onto the village school. Local people, many of them miners from nearby pits, dug frantically to try to rescue their children. But it was too late. 116 children and 28 adults died. These images of a young white-haired boy called Jeff Edwards being carried from the rubble struck at the hearts of people around the world. Britain was stunned. The Queen didn't come immediately, but when she did visit, she won the appreciation of the survivors and the victims' families. Now grown up, the little white-haired boy relates the story.
She went first of all to the cemetery, and there was a huge floral display on the side of the mountain. And then she left that site, being quite upset by the visit to the cemetery itself. She walked up to Moy Road. Moy Road was the street that led to Pantglas School.
And she just came across, you know, and spoke to us, and he didn't think of her as royalty, really.
She was quite emotional, and you could see that she cared, you know.
To me, that day, she didn't come as the Queen,
No,
our
right
monarch.
there, yeah.
She came as a mother to sympathise and to empathise and to come into the community to really appreciate what I think everybody had been through on that day.
The Queen's visit was 8 days after the disaster. Some said it was too late, but not those in Aberfan.
I think most people would have agreed that to come straight away, it was not suitable, it would not be convenient.
It was too dangerous for her to come, really, when you think of it.
I think she gave the village time to grieve and then came.
The Queen had formed a bond with Aberfan which was to endure throughout her reign. But the relationship between Wales and other members of the royal family was not always so mutually understanding. Prince Charles was just 9 years old when the Queen announced he would become Prince of Wales.
I was mortally embarrassed, if you really want to know. Because the trouble was I was plonked in front of the television at the school I was at with all the other boys. And you can imagine 9 years old in front of everybody else. It was rather embarrassing. They all turned and looked at me, you see.
I intend to create my son Charles Prince of Wales today.
Yo, Carlo, Carlo, Carlo Arpolo.
Some people in Wales were just as equivocal over having a new, very English Prince of Wales.
The 60s creates a very different atmosphere in Wales. You have the sort of international youth rebellion that shakes Western culture. And that fed in, I think, into this moment leading up to the investiture in 1969, where there was a significant movement of opposition to the investiture and the creation of a Prince of Wales.
And opposition increased when it was announced that the Queen would crown him prince at a lavish ceremony at Carnarvon Castle. Police took extra precautions whenever they visited Wales.
The police took no chances. There were almost as many uniformed and plainclothes security men along the route to Llantrisant as there were flag wavers.
The The Queen sent Prince Charles to Aberystwyth to learn Welsh ahead of the investiture, in the hope of improving his standing. But security concerns continued in the run-up to the ceremony.
Endless, backbiting, criticism, cynicism, everything else, which so often happens with these sorts of things. Until the actual, sort of week before or something, when suddenly, a great deal of interest, I think, was generated. But there was always that uncertainty as to what was going to happen.
Something did happen. 2 bombers were killed when a device they were planting went off.
There was some who had reservations, very strong reservations, about having a Prince of Wales, who had no immediate connections with Wales as an entity and as a nation.
The Queen understood this. It was put to her that there might be some danger in actually going to Carnarvon for the investiture, both for her and for the Prince of Wales. And she said, well, it's the price we pay for the positions we occupy. So we're going.
And the investiture went ahead with great pomp and ceremony.
I, Charles, Prince of Wales, do become your liege man of life and limb, and of earthly worship. And faith and truth I will bear unto thee, to live and die against all manner of folks.
I would be very surprised if this happened again in the same way, because she will have understood, and certainly the Prince of Wales would have understood, that these kinds of ceremonials, if they are not accepted widely by the public and within the population, can be counterproductive.
The investiture has to be seen in many ways as a huge success. It attracted a massive television audience. There were tea parties in virtually every street in Wales. In many respects, it was a success. However, it seems to me that it was a ceremony, in a sense, out of its time.
I'm sure that once the ceremony was over, and in the train, she must have said, good, thank goodness, it's gone without a blemish.
Yeah.
Now it's over, we can relax.
And the following years saw the royals becoming more accessible, with more direct contact with the Welsh people.
The Queen was always interested in meeting people, and she had this wonderful rapport with people, that she could talk to anybody about anything.
There clearly comes a point in the 1970s, perhaps, when the monarchy attempts to modernise itself, less associated with pomp and inherited privilege, and becomes much more accessible and open. There is more emphasis probably in the monarchy on meet the people kind of visits, being supportive to people. And I think it's clear that the royal family, from being rather austere and aloof, become much more ready to do that.
When she arrived at wherever it may have been, in a station, in the middle of a market square, or in the middle of a muddy field in Paris, her whole face sort of lit up. If people see you smiling, it doesn't matter who you are, they immediately begin to smile with you, if you like. And I think that sort of, it sounds probably very old-fashioned, but the sort of aura about her. You really had to watch the reaction of the crowds when she, did walk about, and always had time to stop for somebody. And it just sort of gave that bond between monarch and people.
Meeting the Queen was, for some people, very special.
I think that moment where you're sort of waiting for the Queen to come down the line, and you're sort of thinking of all the things that you've been told to do, like, you know, curtsy and it's ma'am, and you don't reach out your hand until she reaches out her hand, and all the time thinking, you know, my mum's in the audience somewhere, and is she taking a photo of me meeting the Queen? It's all a little bit overwhelming, and then it's over.
I was very nervous, I remember. I was very quiet. I didn't say much, but she was very good at putting one at ease whilst meeting her. She would always shake your hand. She would always have a little chat. She'd always know what you were doing. She was very well versed on your career, where you came from.
There is a very nice way in which you are presented to the Queen if you've already been presented, you know, 100 years earlier or something like that. And you'll find, say it was one of the ladies in waiting, or the equerry or the private secretary, he would say to you, have you met the Queen before? And you say, yes, I have. And he would then say, Your Majesty, may I present Mr. Brian Hoey, who you already know? Which is a nice, subtle way. And she would say, how nice to see you again, which makes you feel 10 feet tall in that way.
Decades after the Aberfan disaster, survivor Jeff Edwards was at a function where the Queen was present and was asked to wait for Her Majesty.
Her lady-in-waiting came over to me and she said, oh, Mr. Edwards, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Aberfan. And she said, oh, Her Majesty would want to meet you. So she said, wait before she goes back into the official residence. And she said, I'll introduce you. So anyway, she came along and she said, oh, you're the little boy with the white hair.
What never ceased to amaze me with the Queen, it was that ability to just ask sort of personal questions. I think there are some people who thought that that's like really easy to do. Actually, to be happy and cheerful and welcoming and ask the right questions is an incredibly difficult skill to have, and one that, you know, not everyone can do. And all the times I met her, she was kind of warm and welcoming. Every single time, she made you feel that you were really important.
She immediately put people at ease. And I think that, you know, no matter how short the meeting was with the Queen, you always left feeling very special. And I think that was a real skill.
When the Queen showed up anywhere in Wales, it was the biggest thing. Bigger than any pop star or rock star or film star. This was the occasion.
We give you thanks for Jesus Christ, your Son. Enliven the Church, his body in the world.
Some people felt a bond greater than others. Hilda Price from Cardiff read a prayer at the Queen's 90th birthday celebrations. They were born on the same day, the 21st of April, in 1926.
My mum used to tell everybody. I felt really connected to her. Well, I suppose I idolised her in a way when I was younger.
Hilda was a lifelong fan. When the Queen came to Swansea in 1989, Hilda wore a badge so the Queen would see they shared the same birthday.
She saw it and came over. Oh, she said to me, you're born the same day. I don't usually find many born this. I think she said any, but I'm not quite sure. Many, perhaps she said, born the same day as me. And, that was a wonderful day, that was. I couldn't believe that she'd spoken to me. It was wonderful to be in her presence. It struck me how ordinary she was when she spoke to us, you know. It was just as if we were a next-door neighbour to her, you know.
The popularity of the royal family in Wales and around the world soared when Charles married Diana, who became Princess of Wales. The Welsh people loved Diana, and huge crowds thronged to see her when she came here.
She was, in many ways, a global figure. She was famous throughout the world. everybody knew of her. And then the difficulties in her marriage, the end of her marriage, and of course her death were all seismic events which attracted huge, huge publicity. It was a real crisis for the British monarchy.
The outpouring of grief made the Queen recognise how important the Princess of Wales had been to the people of Wales. And she had to do something to improve the image of the royal family, especially Charles. He threw himself into his charitable work in Wales, the Prince's Trust, Cambrian Mountain Society, pursuing his interests in food production, architecture and building conservation, even setting up a home with his new wife Camilla at Myddfai, near Carmarthen.
Prince Charles and the Queen, over time, overcame that horrendous publicity which they received and were successful overall, it seems to me, in rescuing the reputation of the monarchy and re-establishing it as a more caring and thoughtful monarchy than perhaps people had got the impression that it was previously.
Even in her most difficult years, the Queen never forgot the mothers of Aberfan, even diverting from organised visits nearby.
She said, how far am I from Aberfan? I'd like to go down and meet the residents of Aberfan again, and she wanted to meet survivors and bereaved parents and siblings. She sort of said, well, what have you done with your lives, and are you married, and do you have children, and what's your job? And so she was quite keen to find out how we'd all moved on over those years, you know, because that was a number of years really after the disaster.
And in 2012, she visited for a fourth time to open the new school.
And the funny thing is, she's come with different transport every time. I mean, the last visit was in a helicopter.
The only thing she hasn't done is come up the River Tap in a boat.
I was just thinking that, June. The very thing I thought that.
Aberfan is a small mining community consisting of 3,000 to 4,000 people. And I think we see her as our queen here. And I think there's no place in the UK that can say that it's had that close relationship with her in that way. And I think that's the respect that she has for the people of Aberfan and the community itself in going probably through one of the most tragic events of her reign, and also in terms of giving that empathy to the community in its recovery.
As well as the wives of Aberfan, the Queen reached out to other Welsh families in times of crisis. She went out of her way to give comfort. In 1995, she was on a pre-planned visit to an army barracks in Pembrokeshire, where she was due to meet the families of soldiers serving in Bosnia. Some of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers had just been taken hostage by Bosnian Serbs, and their wives and girlfriends were in the headlines. The Queen changed her schedule to hold a meeting with them, away from the waiting cameras.
Her Majesty the Queen, who was our Colonel-in-Chief, decided that she would like to go and see the families of those concerned and try and reassure them. And she asked that she should meet the wives of those, the girls concerned, the wives of those captured, on her own, privately.
There was a hype, oh, Her Majesty the Queen is coming to visit, and all these people are coming to visit, these top nogs from the army, and that meant absolutely nothing to us. It could have been the Pope. All we wanted was to know that our husbands were alive and safe, etc. But she came across as motherly, like a family person, like she really, really understood, and she understood our anguish and our grief. It was really, really heartfelt. We were so grateful that she had come to visit us. It meant a lot to everybody. It made a difference for us because it gave us hope, and we believed in what she said, and we were thankful for her coming to see us. And nobody else would have done then, after she had been. If anybody was going to come to see us, she topped it. It meant so much to us.
After the visit, the Queen sent a telegram to the regiment's commanding officer in Bosnia.
The Queen said this: "I visited your regiment's families today in Haverfordwest. Despite the grave situation which you're presently facing, I found them in good heart and supporting each other in the finest traditions of the regiment. You can be proud of them as I'm proud of you. I send my warm good wishes to you all." Rather took me back, and suddenly I thought, we're not quite as much on our own as I thought we were.
The Queen later presented medals and new colours to the soldiers who served in Bosnia, even when in 2017 she surrendered some of her royal duties. She remained Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Welsh Regiment and of the Welsh Guards. During the Falklands War, the Welsh Guards suffered heavy casualties when the troopship Sir Galahad was bombed. Simon Weston was one of the survivors.
The Queen was my Queen because I served her. Being a guardsman and around the royal family for most of us meant a lot. You know, you'll always have people who'll have different opinions, and quite right too. It makes you validate your own opinions, and it also makes you stand the corner and have to debate some of the reasons why you feel like you do. Because people, like I say, will have different opinions about privilege and such like, but not for me, not for me. I was very, very proud to be a Welsh Guardsman, very, very proud to serve the Queen and the royal family.
There is a sort of machinery for ensuring that popularity is harvested in a useful way, and that is through things such as royal patronage, through visits to various institutions and companies, the honour system. All of that, it seems to me, also means that there is a special attraction to the monarchy and to the Queen in particular from a very wide range of our fellow citizens.
Mr. Simon Weston, for services to charity.
You know, no finer setting in the world for receiving any award or acknowledgement of what you've been fortunate enough to achieve in life, you know. To be given my awards from the head, the figurehead of our country. Does there get any greater moment? Does there get a better moment?
Other award recipients from Wales include prominent sports people.
I remember my dad and sister being nagging me in the lead up to make sure I had a really nice hat. That's really important. And it's really hard because when you're talking about it, it doesn't seem like such a big deal, but when you're there in that moment, it's really huge and quite exciting and quite terrifying. And what you don't want to do is just sound like an idiot when she asks you questions. And it's over in a couple of minutes, but it feels like that moment lasts for a really long time.
For services to music.
Sir Bryn Terfel was knighted by the Queen. He believes it'll inspire others.
Immediately I thought it would give me a step up the ladder to be able to use this in a way that young singers might be inspired, as I was when I was singing with Sir Thomas Allen or Sir John Tomlinson or Dame Margaret Price. There was an echelon there, there was a hierarchy, there was a gravitas. You knew when they walked into the room, and they used that incredible stage power that they had within their profession to help young singers. And hopefully now for the future, that's something that I can do also.
It wasn't just the stars who received royal recognition. The Queen's household and their supporters in Wales were adept at using access to the Queen to reward people who'd made a real difference to their local communities by introducing them to her on her walkabouts. As Lord Lieutenant of Powys, Dame Siân Legg Burke helped decide who met the Queen.
There's lots of subjects and lots of people that you can put your finger on to be able to sort of envelop them, if you like, and that if you had a visit by the Queen, you could almost, if you like, just pick them up and plonk them in front of her and say, there you go then. I think it was important to the people who were being presented, if you like, to the Queen, because it just sort of made them feel good. It was the feel-good factor. And she, wherever she went, there was that feel-good factor.
Buckingham Palace garden parties were also a way of recognising achievement in Wales.
With that very special invitation arriving through your letterbox, and you sort of think, that's pretty nice, really. Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to go. The whole point is that it makes them feel special. And then you probably find the wife has to buy a new hat and the husband's probably complaining. And I always used to advise the ladies never to wear 6-inch stilettos because they'd sink into Her Majesty's grass on the lawns at Buckingham Palace.
The wives of Aberfan were invited to a royal garden party in 2012.
Was it Mary who said, are we all wearing hats or fascinations?
Yeah. No, not fascinations.
Not fascinations, what was it?
I know what it is.
Defibrillator, was it?
Pardon?
Instead of a fascinator, it was
Fibrillator, I said.
Oh, that's right.
A fibrillator. Instead of a fascinator, a
Are you wearing a hat or a fibrillator?
That, you're quite right, Denise. That's it. You got it in one. And I've still got my fibrillator in the box, ready. And I say to everyone, if ever you want, and it was an expensive one. Mine wasn't cheap. Mine was dear, but it was a lovely one. If you're going anywhere now and you want a fibrillator, I can lend you mine.
They were a large group, much bigger than normal, which raised eyebrows from another guest.
How many invitations did you have? 24. 24, he said. I had 4, and I'm mayor or the Lord Mayor of somewhere. And he said, well, where are you from? And I said, we're the wives group from Aberfan. And he said, my dear, you deserve every ticket that you've been allotted.
But did anyone ever get to know the Queen during these functions? Catherine Jenkins sang for the Queen's 90th birthday celebrations. She also met the Queen privately during a lunch at Buckingham Palace and recalls how the Queen helped her out of a tricky moment.
I was a little nervous going into this lunch about my table manners. I think I was 25 or something, and I was worrying that they might not be quite up to Buckingham Palace standards. So they brought round a plate with a piece of gauze and a large bowl of water, like a clear bowl with water. And it got put in front of me, and I panicked. I didn't know what to do with it. And this tray of fruit was being passed around, so I took what looked the safe option, which was a peach, and held it in my hand and looked around, and I felt like the Queen sensed my panic and that I didn't know what I was going to do, and she very sweetly caught my eye and almost said without saying it, follow me. And I was so grateful that she saved me in that moment. And what you actually did was wash the fruit in the bowl and then take the gauze out and dry the piece of fruit. But she saved me from embarrassment. Could have been a potentially awkward situation. I might have picked it up and drank it.
people who knew the Queen speak of a woman who revealed nothing of her inner thoughts beyond a nod and a smile.
There are certain looks that the Queen had, which was, I can't really describe it, but if you caught her eye, you'd either blotted your copybook, or the other look was, well done, thank you. I think the Queen was a very private person. She certainly didn't show her emotions, certainly not in public. She may have done in private.
I would have loved to have known her opinion on meeting members of the IRA. I would love to have listened to her opinion on what she actually thought of Europe. You meet all these people from all these different countries. I'd love to know what she would have thought of some of them, because I'm sure there was some that she thought, my goodness, I hope I never meet those again.
Nobody ever knew what the Queen's innermost thoughts were apart from herself, but it would be reasonable to assume that she didn't support devolution either in Scotland, Northern Ireland or in Wales, because it looked at the sort of disintegration, if you like, of the United Kingdom.
Very, very rarely over the decades has the Queen made any explicit statement of a political commitment one way or another. Buckingham Palace has been very, very careful to avoid controversy, political controversy.
But did the Queen make her feelings known about proposals for devolution during a speech in Westminster to mark her Silver Jubilee?
The problems of progress, the complexities of modern administration, the feeling that metropolitan government is too remote from the lives of ordinary men and women.
And in the speech, she talks about the huge changes that have taken place since she became Queen.
They provide the background for the continuing and keen discussion of proposals for devolution to Scotland and Wales within the United Kingdom.
She says she can sympathise or understand the aspirations of people in Wales and Scotland.
I number kings and queens of England and of Scotland and princes of Wales among my ancestors. And so I can readily understand these aspirations.
But then in the speech, she changes gear and changes her tone.
But I cannot forget that I was crowned Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
You know, you have your devolution discussions, but I am Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And that in the context of the ferocious debate that was going on at the time about devolution in Scotland and in Wales, strikes me as being quite an explicit indication of where her commitment was in terms of devolution.
Good morning. And it is a very good morning in Wales. Yeah.
But 20 years and 2 referenda later, and the people of Wales had voted for devolution.
This opening today marks a new and significant direction in the way Wales is governed. It is a moment of renewal, true to the spirit of Wales.
I think the Queen understood that the developments in her kingdom towards greater devolution were developments that had popular support, because clearly they'd been legitimised in referendum, and endorsing it in a way which I thought was very important. Because in a constitutional monarchy, the monarch has to be on the side of the people continually, and that includes the institutions of the people, and especially elected democratic institutions.
And she went further, challenging AMs when greater powers were devolved to the Assembly in 2006.
It shows pride and confidence in the future of Wales, in the future of democracy, and in the central role of the National Assembly in the life of the nation. It is now up to you, by giving meaning to the ideals and aspirations of those you serve, by expressing the spirit of your rich and ancient culture, by shaping the very future of this country, to make this National Assembly a true symbol of Wales.
The Queen also recognised cultural changes in Wales, visiting Mount Stuart School at Bute Town in Cardiff during her Diamond Jubilee tour.
It's important because we're always being downgraded. And here today you have something which is very, very important to the rest of Wales taking place on your doorstep.
The Queen was, of course, head of the Church of England, but not head here in Wales. She embraced other religions, though, attending a multi-faith service in Cardiff.
It happened, of course, in an Anglican church, but nevertheless, we had readings from the scriptures of all the main faiths. And she obviously must have been very happy with that. Otherwise, she would not have been there, or I dare say the palace would have let us know that this was not acceptable to the Queen. Firm in her own Christian convictions, but open to the fact that other people had different faiths. And so that was very important. And the leaders of other faiths, of course, were absolutely delighted that she had come to such a service as that.
And the Archbishop had a taste of a royal welcome himself when he was asked to preach at the Queen's private residence, Sandringham.
You're very nervous, really, aren't you? Because you're in this country house with her and other members of the royal family. But the thing that struck me was that how friendly she was and how anxious she was to make sure that I was relaxed and happy with everything that was going on. I remember her saying to me, Archbishop, we normally don't say grace for lunch, only for dinner. Is that okay with you? I wonder what you would have said if I'd said, well, no, let's say grace at lunch as well.
Somebody else who spent private time with the Queen in her later years, this time at Windsor Castle, was the Welsh portrait painter, Dan Llewellyn Hall.
Because she was always being in the public eye, to get them off guard is actually quite difficult. But in those situations, the sitting is essential because you're looking for that moment of insight into the personality. And she very much enjoyed the idea at the time for a bit of sort of gossip, should we say. But I wouldn't say quite it was gossipy, but it was very free and flowing and relaxed. That for someone in that position to talk like that, I felt, was a tremendous vote of trust. To be given that trust in that time was a very special moment. What I wanted to achieve with it was trying to convey somebody who was very strong, who was in a position of authority, conveying these subtleties, really, using that time I had with her distilled through a canvas.
The painting now hangs in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff.
I was very pleased with the portrait. The reaction is always something that I quickly realised that was well out of my hand.
The Queen was patron of the Welsh Rugby Union. In 2017, she withdrew from that role and some other responsibilities in Wales. But she remained Colonel-in-Chief of the Welsh Regiments, patron of the Royal Welsh Agricultural Society, the Royal Welsh Show, and retained her lifelong patronage of the Welsh Pony and Cob Association.
I felt very, very proud that the Welsh Pony and Cob Society had such a link and such patronage from the royal family. Many societies, I'm sure, envy that fact, but we are so pleased that Her Majesty was a patron for such a long time. Not only had she a great interest for the breed, but her knowledge was far-reaching, which maybe was not surprising because she was such a lover of horses in general. But I think she had a soft spot for the Welsh cobs.
As well as horses, dogs, and in particular, Welsh corgis had a special place in the Queen's household.
The Queen always preferred Pembroke corgis. I think she had as many as 9 at one stage. I think she liked the temperament, and she was always trying to improve the nature of her corgis.
One of Mary's dogs sired the Queen's litter, and Mary was given a puppy. It was an association which continued over the years.
All corgi people have a bond with the Queen because she loved the breed so much. She came to Wales to the Powys picnic in 2002, and so we all went there, and the Queen recognised me and spoke to me. She seemed to be very relaxed. She loved to be with the dogs. She was very regal. She was able to speak to anybody at their level. You didn't feel that you were not good enough, sort of thing.
As the Queen gave up some of her responsibilities in favour of her hobbies, other members of the royal family, principally Charles, but also his son William, were being groomed to take over. Prince William's introduction to Wales contrasted starkly to that of his father. As William and Kate stepped into the spotlight, they chose Wales to start their married life. Anglesey became a haven for them.
His introduction to Wales was very, very different, working from RAF Valley as a helicopter pilot, living locally. People, did bump into him in the supermarkets and so on. That this was a deliberate way of William getting to know Wales and for Wales to get to know him, but in a very low-key way, in a very relaxed sort of manner.
You talk to some of the civilian personnel working on the base here and the military personnel as well, and they were saying, he was so approachable, you could talk to him. He was one of the boys. They weren't hounded by the press and the media. He was allowed to go to the local go-karting circuit. He called for his paper in the morning in the local shop. She was allowed to go shopping in Menai Bridge. So they were allowed to do their own thing. And I think they really enjoyed that. It's one of those places that they like coming to. In fact, I did meet Prince Charles at the home of the Marquis of Anglesey.
As the Queen stepped back, she chose Charles to continue her most cherished relationship in the place in Wales she held most dear, Aberfan.
On the 50th anniversary of the disaster, she was unable to come herself, but she commanded the Prince of Wales to bring a personal message from her.
The Queen wanted very much to send you a personal message on this day and has asked me to say these words to you on her behalf. I well remember my own visit with Prince Philip after the disaster and the posy I was given by a young girl which bore the heartbreaking inscription, "From the remaining children of Aberfan." Since then we have returned on several occasions and have always been deeply impressed by the remarkable fortitude, dignity, and indomitable spirit that characterizes the people of this village and the surrounding valleys. On this saddest of anniversaries, I send my renewed good wishes to you all. Elizabeth R.
I'm sure that the Prince of Wales will have close links with the community. He himself has been here on 2 separate occasions, so we hope that legacy will continue.
Charles used to visit this estate on Anglesey.
My parents had a pretty close connection with the royal family.
But even long-standing friends of the royals do not underestimate the challenges facing the new king.
He's got a very hard act to follow, hasn't he? Because the whole British people obviously have an enormous affection for the Queen. So it's tricky for him, but I think he has great qualities himself, qualities of integrity, humour, and passion for things he believes strongly in. It may be a bit difficult for him to adjust those passions to the more restrained role he will have to play as king compared with the role he's been able to play as Prince of Wales.
From a very early age, he was expressing his views on modern architecture, for example, his knowledge of and support for complementary medicines, for organic farming, what is and shouldn't be allowed in terms of food production. He brings with him all of that history of expressing himself. That is in stark difference, it seems to me, to the record of his mother. And that will probably make it a different sort of monarchy. But there is no question but that looking back, the Queen was the textbook monarch for a time of profound change.
As a queen, she has been absolutely magnificent, totally flawless.
Not everything went smoothly, but she's got through it. She got through it.
Having met her and seen that this was a person who was very witty, very colourful, very much enjoyed people and their presence, my respect for her sort of went up considerably after having had the sitting.
She was a people's queen, really.
Her ability to just make you feel that you were really special.
Trust, respect, admiration. I think that's really what she has given to the people of Wales.
The wicked sense of humour and those laughing blue eyes I will never forget.
The Queen's successor is going to find it extremely difficult to match anything that has been done by Queen Elizabeth II, because, as President Ronald Reagan of the United States said, she will be a hard act to follow.
I've travelled the length and breadth of this country during my 60 years as your Queen. Prince Philip and I have shared many of the joys and sadnesses of the Welsh people in that time, and have always been struck by your sense of pride and your undimmed